Hi and welcome to the next tutorial. In today's lesson we'll learn how to recreate this cool looking stretch text effect using Adobe After Effects. So anyways guys, let's jump in. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a new composition. I'm just going to go with a 1920 by 1080 pixel document at 24 frames and I'm going to leave the duration at 10 seconds. Just press OK. The next thing that we need to do is we need to create a new solid. And don't worry about the color because we're going to come over here to our effects and presets and we are going to search for gradient ramp. Now once we've got our gradient ramp in there, we just need to find two sets of colors. So I'm just going to go to color hunt and I'm just going to pick two colors here and then just copy and paste them back into After Effects. So now once you've got your colors, the last thing you can do is you can just come over here and you can move the start or the end of the ramp to wherever you like. So I'm gonna just leave it like that and I'm now ready for the next step. So the next step that we need to do is we need to come over here and grab our T tool, click anywhere on the screen and then just write our word. So I'm going to be writing stretch. The font here is going to be Arzo Sans Black and I'm just making sure that I'm highlighting all of it and then just increasing the spacing in between the characters. So it just makes it easier to select a little bit later on. So I'm going to keep it at 15. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to align it to the center of my screen and I'm just going to click on the selection tool and then just make it a little bit smaller. So something like that. So now once we've done that, we then need to open up our rulers by pressing Ctrl R. And once we've got our rulers, I'm just going to click and drag two guides to the start and end of the word. So if you want to move them around, you can. Now this is just a visual guide. You don't actually see this on your document. It just helps you create the animation. So it doesn't have to be that perfect. But anyways, once we've done that, we're ready for the next step. So the next step is to come over here to our text. We need to right click on that, go to create shapes from text. And now we need to select all the paths for all the letters. So there's a quick way of doing this by coming over here and actually typing path and then make sure you're on your first keyframe. And then we can just come over here and set all of these keyframes to be on. So now once we've got all of those selected, make sure you select all of them because otherwise the whole thing won't work. Just press U on your keyboard to make sure that all the paths are there selected like that. So now we can actually move to our animation. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to move forward in time about 1 second. And then we need to come over here and I'm just going to grab the selection tool and I'm just going to highlight this area of my text. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to make sure that I click and hold shift and then I'm just going to move it over until I'm just using this guide as an example. So now once we've animated that, so if I move that back, you can see that the E is actually stretching, but now it stretches too far and we want to actually squash down some other letters. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squash down this part of the T. So I'm going to highlight all this section. I'm just going to hold shift and then bring this T a little bit smaller like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this side. Now what you do on one side, you want to kind of keep it on the other side as well. So make sure you try and get them as even as possible. And then I'm going to highlight all of that and I'm just going to move it over slightly. So now we're going to do the same thing for this T. So I'm going to highlight all of them and then I'm just going to make the middle bit a little bit smaller. And then I'm just going to make the ends of the T a little bit smaller as well. And you can hold shift to do this to keep it all straight in alignment. So now once I've done that, now you can actually see we've got this nice animation working and we've just shortened down these two T's. So that's looking pretty good, but we haven't done anything to the S. So we're just going to come over here and just click a keyframe for the S just so we don't forget it. Now what we need to do is I'm just going to copy all of those first keyframes, move to 2 seconds in time and then just paste them. So now if we play that back, we've got the nice stretch and then it goes back to how it was. So now we're going to come to 3 seconds and we are going to animate another letter. So the letter that I'm going to animate now is I'm going to animate the H. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all of these points here because we want these points here to do this animation. I'm just going to click and hold and then hold shift and then just move the H probably to about there. So now we need to come over here and then shorten the T's as well, or we can even shorten the E as well. You can't do all the characters because if we start to squash the C, it's just not going to look that great, and even with the S. So we'll stick with the letters that are very, you know, have a lot of straight lines. So we're going to come over here and bring the T a little bit shorter in length. Then we're going to, if you need to zoom in, hold Alt and scroll on your mouse wheel. And we're just going to bring that in, and we're also going to bring in this side as well, so something like that. I'm just going to highlight all of them and move them over a bit. Alright, cool. So now we've got two sets of animation happening. So we've got the E, nice, and then the H over here. Nice. So what we're going to do at 4 seconds is we're going to go back to the start, highlight all those keyframes, and then we are just going to paste them in. So now we're going to move to the final letter and we're going to stretch out this R. But now because the R is quite intricate, there's a few things that we need to do, and we need to make sure that we're selecting the right paths. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to highlight all the paths just so I can see what I need to select. And then we need to really not have these points on the R. So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a selection from there, make sure that you don't get that T. We're going to highlight all those points. Then I'm going to come over here, just going to press H to move it back over, then press V for the selection tool, and I'm just going to hold shift on these points here. So if you have to zoom in, you can zoom in by holding Alt and scrolling on your mouse. And you can then press H to bring up the hand tool, then back to V to hold shift and unselect it. So now once I've done that, if I've done that correctly, I then can drag this. So I'm just going to zoom out again a little bit. So I'm just going to click and drag and then just move it over until probably about there. So now we've stretched out that R and it's looking pretty good. So now all I need to do is just, you know, squash some other characters together, and I'm just going to do this fairly quickly. And so now when I've done that, the final thing that we need to do is we just need to grab the keyframes from the start, and we are just going to move it to 6 seconds, and then we're just going to paste it. So now we've got 3 different letters of 3 different types of animation. So the E stretches, and then the H stretches, and then the R stretches. And it's looking pretty good. So the final thing that we can do to that is we can just start to go into the graph editor. So we're going to highlight all these keyframes, right click, and then we can go to Easy Ease. And then we're going to go to the graph editor. And what we are going to do here is I'm just going to make a selection around this area over here. So just click and drag. And then I'm just going to grab this point and bring it towards the middle. And so I'm going to do the same for the other side. Don't just click one point, make sure that you click and drag. So we're going to do the same thing for all of these, and we're just going to give our animation a little bit of acceleration and deceleration. Now you can zoom in if you want. It's the same way, you can hold Alt and scroll. And so now if you've done that correctly, your animation should look something like this, where you've got like it kind of zips out, it does the animation, and then it kind of goes back in together. And that's looking really, really cool. So the final thing here is we just need to dress it up a little bit. Now, I've been using drop shadow a lot in my previous videos, but I've also figured out that Red Giant have their own kind of drop shadow, which is called long shadow. So I'm using long shadow here, but you can use drop shadow to do the same kind of thing. And what we need to do is just make sure that you're on the stretch outlines, and then we can add the long shadow. And what's cool about Red Giant long shadow is that it's got all these presets ready to go. So I'm just going to pick a short preset here, and I'm just going to change the color. So I'm going to get another color from Color Hunt. So I'm just going to paste that in. And so now I've got that nice kind of effect, and it's added it to the text, and that's looking really, really good. If you want to add a stroke here, you can. If you want to get rid of the fill and not have a fill, you can also do that. Now the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a kind of bokeh effect for the background. So I went to Unsplash and I downloaded this pretty cool kind of lighting kind of effect just for the background. So I'm just going to bring it down to about there, and I'm just going to change the blend mode to screen. It's looking pretty nice at the moment. Actually, I'm going to make it slightly bigger so I can animate it. But then again, also as a part of Red Giant's package, they have their own blur. So this is part of the universe package, so I'm just going to come over here and then choose a preset. Now there's many different presets that you can choose. I'm just going to choose a vertical blur, press apply. And now you can see it's got like a really nice vertical blur effect. I don't even have to change any of this kind of stuff, but if I wanted to, I can add some width to the blur. Makes it look nice to sit in the background. I am going to bring down the opacity maybe to about, I don't know, 75%. And the final thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a position keyframe for it. So I'm going to start it over here, just maybe move it to the side, and then I'm going to move forward to, let's say, the end of the animation, and I'm just going to move it to that side over there. So now when I play that back, you've got this nice, you know, kind of effect in the background. It's got a nice blur. It's looking really, really cool. Anyways, that's it for this lesson. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.